Okay, how do emotions impact learning? I think for a long time we thought of learning, certainly learning in schools, as just being about filling children's heads with knowledge. It was just the cognitive, and it was all about imparting that knowledge. More recently, we've come to understand that there is no aspect of our learning in any field that doesn't involve emotions, that doesn't have an emotional component. In fact, for most learning, the emotional component is the largest part. I suppose there's a distinction between negative emotions and positive emotions. And most of us understand the difference between us, but we understand how negative emotions work. We understand that if we feel anxious or angry, then that tends to close down. Most of us will have done at school something about fight or flight. So we'll understand if something worries us, then we either run away or we stand and fight. The one that people ignore is one called freeze. Fight, flight or freeze. And freeze is where if there was a predator coming near, I'm just going to stay really, really still and hope that nobody notices me. And in the classroom, that would be, I hope nobody asks me a question or challenges me or exposes me in any way. And so negative emotions, they just narrow down our focus onto the threat. So if you had someone who was anxious about spiders, then if there's a spider in the room, everything else in the room stops. You just have a spider. And even though it's only that big to them, it's the biggest thing in the world. And until that spider disappears, that's the only thing that matters. So negative emotions do that. They just make us focus on those things. Positive emotions, in terms of learning, have been little studied until recently, until probably the late 90s. We just thought we felt positive if we weren't feeling bad. Whereas now we know that engaging positive emotions is probably one of the most vital components of learning. That actually a lady called Barbara Fredrickson came up with a theory called the broaden and build theory. And the broaden and build theory said that what positive emotions do is they broaden what's called our thought action repertoire. They allow us to see the big picture. They allow us to make connections. It changes our thoughts. It allows us then to be more creative. And that then builds our capacity to learn, to make friends, to bounce back from things, to be resilient, etc. So what we now understand is we used to think that if people did well, then they'd feel good. So if they do well in school, then they'll feel good. If they succeed at something, they feel good. We now know that was the wrong way round. That actually, if people feel good, then that provides the fuel for them to do well. It provides that energy, that persistence, that drive to succeed. So actually what we've got to do is try and create positive climates in the classroom. We've got to create positive emotions. So that might be something like joy, or we might be looking for pride or contentment or excitement and enthusiasm. How do we excite people in order that they want to do it? And I think probably one of the most important positive emotions to generate in the classroom, to do this broadening, to allow kids to really engage with the learning, would be curiosity. And we all know that very young children are just innately curious. They ask hundreds of questions, much to the annoyance of their parents. When my kids just ask, how does this work and what does this do? And somehow they get into our school system and they stop asking questions, and answering questions becomes more important than asking them. They're worried about being judged, they're worried about how well they do, and they lose that sense of curiosity. In fact, young children before they come into school think in a really divergent way. They think creatively about everything. By the time we get to about 25, we don't think divergently at all. All we try and do is find the right answer. So it's a case of trying to develop things like curiosity, like creativity, using children's imagination to develop those things.